Hello there, information architecture students. This is Professor Schengili-Roberts. Just wanting to give you a fairly quick overview as to what's expected in terms of the information architecture schematics and the preliminary sketches of your IA redesign, and in terms of at least a flow of information. So. Just basically, again, for the second project, and this has now been pushed out to June 30th, so that should definitely give everybody more than enough time to do what's required for this. And as I say in the project assignment, essentially, again, what I'm looking for is a preliminary IA schematic of your website redesign. What is it? It's essentially a diagram that shows the organization of the website's pages and how they're linked to one another. At the top of the IA schematic ought to be the home page, and from the home page, the diagram shows the pages users can then navigate to based on the hierarchical layout of the existing, the existing website, but also how I want you to reconfigure things. So essentially, at this stage, having had the results of the card sort, you have a better sense as to what navigation elements and labels do not currently work, and here's your chance to now say, okay, here's how we want to redo the navigation and the individual labels for web pages within the website. What I want you to show within the IA schematic diagram is essentially show a parent-child relationship, to show the top-down navigation, and I want you to have lateral connections to show how pages from two different branches can be linked together, if that's how that works. And you can use pretty much any type of program out there that can create essentially a bunch of boxes. For the longest time, Microsoft Visio has been the tool of choice for IAs. Having said that, that is much less the case these days. The nice thing about Visio is that you should be able to get a free version to play with, and it is great at making boxes and making connections between those boxes. That is really, in many ways, it's raison d'etre. But if you can also do the same sort of thing with PowerPoint, with OmniGraffle if you're working from a Mac system. It's also you can also do this within. Within, I have seen MS Paint being used, but believe me, that wasn't a very pretty example. But essentially, anything that can make boxes and allows you to draw lines that connect those boxes, that is essentially what we're looking at here. The IA schematic also should also show all of the pages of the website in terms of at least down to what I'm calling the third level. So the home page is considered the top level, the topmost level, and then the main navigation would be the second level, and then all of the pages that then drop down from that second order from the navigation level, that essentially is the third level. And if there's fourth or fifth level, don't worry too much about that. From a professional basis, yes, that would normally have to be covered. For this class, don't worry too much about it. And the examples I'm going to show you, essentially, I'll keep to this particular dictum. So again, to give you some examples, these are taken from previous classes. So in this particular case, and sorry, it seemed to be cutting. Didn't think this was going to cut off the part at the bottom there. See if I can. There we go. I can just jug that up a little bit. There we go. Okay, so in this particular case, this is for the VRO homepage. I don't know what VRO is at this point. I don't remember. Sorry, but essentially the homepage is at the very top of the hierarchy, as you can see there, and then pages that are kind of adjacent to that, so to speak, which are immediately available from the home page, are either navigation items such as what you see here, so climate, and then Further down, you can see biodiversity, which is the second one that comes down. Landform, land use, soil, water, marine, land and water management, soil and land survey directory, and then catchment region homepages. And then from that, not navigation items, these are likely items which are essentially like standalone pages, the VRO sitemap, and then the VRO feedback pages. So this one, as it says here, this one provides a good overview of what's going on in the site from the top level. It uses color to distinguish between the second and third level elements, and that's a good thing in this particular case because otherwise it might be hard to distinguish what say where it says biodiversity and where it says marine, how that fits into the picture. It's because there's so many different items here. The color coding gives the reader an immediate sense that, okay, this clearly belongs to the navigation item, and that's reinforced by the connection of the lines to the to the other items which are connected, the other green items which are connected together. One challenge, as it says here, is that it doesn't distinguish between what is a navigational element and what is a page. In other words, under Soil and Land Survey directory, is search by keyword something that appears as part of a mega menu, or is it a link on the Soil and Land Survey directory page, or is it just a header on that page? So in some cases, it'll be good to help distinguish between things, and you can use other colors, and of course things like keys. Here is an example of that, for example. So, again, we have at the top, we have a home page, and then from there we have search and find using the library, research support, course support, libraries about us, and then off separately, news, events, exhibits, and then search. And then under that we have various other pages where we have things which are in yellow, things which are in white, and may in some cases be layered. And as you can see from the legend there, the pages referenced in blue, or the navigation items referenced in blue, those are portal pages, and some of them appear in the global navigation. Some of them are separate, like news, events, exhibits, and search. And then the ones in white rectangles are pages. The ones that are in rounded squares are in-page content. And then we have the ones that are stacked are essentially similar content. And then the ones in yellow, those denote applications within the site. And then the one with the yellow and the little search glass indicates search. So this one is, as it says here, is moderately complex and provides a lot more information than the previous one. This actually borders on being essentially too much info, but it is visually organized so that the columns provide a lot of information without needing to use extra lines, as the previous one does. So here it provides a clear idea as to what constitutes navigation and the different kinds of pages or actions that exist, though through the different shape boxes. It also shows what the footer navigation is going to look like. This may end up being overkill for most of your second project sites. But again, there's some good ideas here. But again, keeping in mind the similarities, essentially you want to show a hierarchy. You want to show, so we again, and again, this still basically shows three levels. So again, home page, the global navigation, and then things that fall under the global navigation. So again, looking at three levels. Here's another example. This one is much more straightforward. Again, we have a home page at the top, and then we have the main second level items: about, partners, projects, methods, services, news and events, and contact. Pardon me, I'm just going to... just needed a quick drink of water there, sorry. So, but it's still, you can still note that there are, it's still easy to pick out that there are essentially three main levels going on here. So home page, then the navigation items in the second level, and then the third level items, which in this case are referenced in pink, but there's also items in blue which are contextual links, and then there's also ones in light purple which indicate headings. So, this one uses color to distinguish between what's global and secondary navigation, and then contextual links, and also what constitutes headers on a page as opposed to links to other pages. Note that for this schematic, the authors have not chosen to distinguish different label cards, or even though these can be either pages, headers, or links. Depending on the context, this may be appropriate. In other words, if you just want to organize different ideas, but it could also prove to be confusing down the road. That this you really do want to try to keep things as simple and straightforward as possible to make sure that it doesn't actually confuse the reader looking at this. And again, keeping in mind what you're trying to do is that you're looking at restructuring the content on the existing target website, and thinking about the existing navigation, how you would rejig it, and then the items for the pages that then fall underneath it. For another example here, again, this is fairly straightforward. Again, 3 levels, very, very plain to see. We have home page, and then the second nav level, about us, events, advocacy, scholarships, and join us, and then all the items that then fall under that one. This one, this which is global navigation by providing a simple rectangular box around the top level navigational elements, as you can see there. So it's fairly clear. What I would say though is that even in this case, I would say you would want to throw in either some sort of key to just to make sure that there's absolutely no mistake as to what's going on. But again, by using boundary boxes, by using different colors, it all makes it easier for the reader to understand exactly what's going on. And then another final example of this. Now I've had to turn this on its side, so sorry about that. You're going to have to turn your head over, but here's another way of doing things. This is still showing a hierarchy. It's just that this is another way of laying this out that shows the distinction between the navigation using the menus and the footers, and the organization through the links. So you can see here again at the top. Essentially bottom left, which would normally be top left if this was rotated the correct way on the page. See the home page, and then from there we have quick access, which are again links on the home page that go to specific functions such as or features such as donate now and search. And then we have global menu items, which are encapsulated in yellow. So who we are, find food, ways to give, volunteer, what are we up to, and so on. And then the things which then fall from there into submenus, and then down to the third tier. And this one's actually gone a little bit overboard by providing the tier 4 items as well, at least in one case. And it's interesting, this one also includes a footer. Now, again, be careful. You're not trying to necessarily sketch out all of the items that exist on the web page. The footer information is good in that it is grouped together here. You may find that it may not be something that you want to focus on, perhaps. What I often find is that let's just say that in many of the websites I looked at, it's usually not the footer that needs to be dealt with, so to speak. It's often more the hierarchical arrangement of key of key navigation, and then labels that fall from that need to be looked at first. However, if you do find that there is an interesting footer, so to speak, on your page, and you want to focus on that, terrific. And again, this shows like kind of a nice way of doing it by putting it in a bounding box. With, in this case, it's not using a key, it just has the name over it, and that again would certainly do the trick. So that gives you an example as to what I'm looking for in terms of the IA schematic diagrams. And again, as you can see here, it's so long as you have an application that can draw rectangles and lines that connect things, you can use pretty much anything you like that does that. Actually, I should have mentioned this. One of the programs that we looked at earlier in the course, Miro, is also can also do this as well. So that's something else you might want to think about. Now, the next thing I want to look at is user scenario storyboard examples. So really what we're looking at here is essentially what I want you to do is, this is the equivalent of the preliminary sketches that I want you to do for the second project. So I want you to come up with low fidelity sketches of your proposed IA redesign. The sketches should highlight the workflows for the home page and the important tasks pages your group wants to redesign. So at this point, you've had a chance to look at and examine your target website for a while now, and you probably have a good idea as to what you think its strengths are and what its weaknesses are. So I want you to think about, in terms of at least one set of flows, and of course, if you find more that you want to concentrate on, that's fine. I would say concentrate on the flows that you think are most important in terms of the specific audiences that are coming to the site. So if you have 2 or 3 sets of audiences, you should probably consider coming up with the equivalent flows to match the needs of those particular audiences. So note that these sketches, essentially, again, this is essentially a preliminary version of these things. I want you to, in other words, things are not set in stone to this point. But what I want you to do is, I want you to go about the practice of actually thinking about how would you go about changing the flow of content from one page to another as it exists on the site. So note, so essentially these are preliminary ideas, and it's a good idea to get, some feedback on your ideas and sketches from a couple of users or stakeholders, if that's at all possible. And what I would suggest in this case is, definitely discuss this with the other team members. Depending on who you were able to get to do the card sort exercise, I would say that if there are people outside of your group and they're willing to spend a bit more time on this, if you're willing to show them some of your storyboard ideas, that is another really good group to pass this along to. So in terms of the grading, I want them to show the basic design structure. So I want you to show the header, footer, and the main content on the page. And again, I'm not looking for high fidelity. I'm looking for very rough sketches, and I'll get to some examples shortly. The sketches also have to be arranged in storyboards that outline the logical steps of the flow. So essentially, I'm looking for you to say, here is what happens on this page, and then somebody clicks on here to go to the next page, and from here they go do something else to go to this other page to accomplish that particular task. Sketches and storyboards are annotated to help the reader, meaning me, essentially understand what's going on. And I also want you to spend some time to do a good job on this. So I want you to spend some time creating something that is qualitatively good. So I don't want I want this to be preliminary, but I want some polish on it as well. Okay, so let's get to some examples. So in this one, so here we have a set, and again, now look at what's going on here. This is essentially looking at a very rough draft of a sample set of web pages. So there's not a lot of high fidelity here. The idea is in terms of standard elements, we have, you see here in the top left where it says logo, and then on the top right where it says login, which is clearly, in that case, is a button. That's all that's needed. You don't have to, sketch in the exact logo. In fact, that's actually not recommended in this particular case. For things like images that appear, you can see that there are X's essentially with squares with X's in them, and they typically represent images. Again, we're not trying to get a high fidelity prototype. We're just looking at the very basic elements on the page. So in this particular case, the task is fairly richly described. What's excellent about this are the sketches and the focus on the elements that are interesting, have changed, and the user journey and interaction through the screen. So there's no mistaking what happens. So again, in the first page here, at top left, click on the login page. As previously mentioned, the team wishes to highlight where to find content available for member, and on the login page, they then go to a sign-in page. Sign-in page itself is simple and mainly designed to expedite the experience of signing in for members and to keep it as painless as possible. Click on sign in. Once you've logged in, this is the main success scenario for signing in. Then you go to the third stage. The proposed members corner currently has at least 4 areas of content. And then people can then click on what they're interested in. In this case, they're clicking on the newsletter. Then that brings them to the 4th page, and then from the 4th page, they can then do some interact there, and then it goes on to the 5th page. Okay, so that's what's going on in terms of the flow. Here's another example. Now, neither of these are particularly rich or complete tasks, so they're not necessarily the best of scenarios. But what I like about them is that they do show examples of what the interface could look like using just paper, where they basically just put new pieces of paper on top to show the differences between sequences and steps in the interaction. I also like how this little yellow one, well, the pink circle actually represents where someone clicked or touched on it. So again, again, we're not looking for high fidelity. We're just looking for something that conveys the essence of what's required. In this case, as you can tell that this is cut out bits of paper. This works just fine. The key thing is really to show the basic portions of the interface and then the flow between them. Here's another example. And again, essentially we have, in this case, somebody clicking on the home page, which has 4 categories. Users can search from an auto-filled search function to find their courses. And then, in this case, they hovered on Explore, the drop-down to discover topics of interest. And then, as you can, as you can see that this is outlined by the red oval. And then from there they get the drop-down menu. You can see this is roughed out in pencil, and this is perfectly fine. And then from that you get a drop-down menu, and then the person finds and selects something from that. The mathematics topic in this case is what's been selected. They then go down to the 3rd page, which is a category page presenting the list of all topics within the selected category. And then in this case, somebody clicks on logic, again indicated by the red oval and the little clicking icon. Logic topic then selected from the carousel, and then they end up on the topic page. So again, this is nice in that it gives essentially a rough outline of the elements on the page, as well as the flow of content and actions of the user. Here's another example. This one takes, and this is essentially continuing on. This is continuing on from the previous page, and this one takes more of a system-centric perspective, where it describes what each page is doing. You really want to think about these tasks in terms of the user's goals and motivation, and then describe the clicks and the steps that take from that perspective. But again, nice visual design. It's simple. It's easy to follow, and again, the flow is trying to emphasize the improvement of a particular task that somebody from a particular audience scenario is coming and interacting with your target website. Okay. Another example here, and again, this is a nice sketch that shows, but does not explain the major elements on the page, and the explanation then appears in the text. And again, this is also fine. You see how this is labeled with with little letters in red, and again, it's essentially showing on the right hand side information about what these elements actually are. So again, that's also allowable. It's nice, if at all possible, to keep it on the same page, because then it's easier for the reader to understand what's going on. And also note in this case it has also been labeled as being the home page, which again is terrific. You know where you are in this particular setup. And then again, in this case, and this is continuing on, so we again a flow from the first page to then this page, and then to where we have a number 2, and then over to number 3, and again, fairly nice storyboard that describes the interaction and references of the previous sketch. And then a final example here, this particular sketch does a good job of devoting time and energy and fidelity to the things that matter at each step. And again, that's really what you want to concentrate on. So for example, the main image is X'd out because again, that's a convention. It doesn't matter. We're not looking for a high fidelity high fidelity sketches of things. The images are not the main focus. because that's not where the center for the interaction that we're talking about is based upon. It is in this particular case it's essentially window dressing and doesn't really aid in this particular case. But you can see how again we have an obvious flow here from beginning at the home page, and then they then select something from a particular drop down menu which has all of those items, and then they select something from within that drop down menu which takes them to a different page, which is the course timetables page, and then from there they can then go and do that particular action. So again, here these are several different examples as to what I'm looking for in terms of the information architecture schematic diagram and the preliminary sketches wanted for project number 2. All right, I hope that explains things. If you have any questions, please send me emails. I will be more than happy to respond to the students in the course and try to help guide them in this particular way. I'll also be posting a version of this as a PDF file so that people can look at these examples more clearly if you in fact want to emulate them. All right, thanks again, and I will be speaking to you all on Tuesday. Take care. Bye.